The glass was still trembling in my hand when he slapped me. It happened so fast, so publicly, that for a second, no one moved. The room froze. Dozens of eyes caught mid-toast, smiles half-formed, champagne flutes raised in the air like a cruel joke. I didn't flinch. I didn't scream. I just stood there, stunned, my cheek burning, staring at the man I had promised my life to, who had just struck me in front of his mother, his friends, our entire world. The room buzzed with whispers. Ethan's face shifted instantly, from rage to remorse to performance. "You were embarrassing yourself," he muttered under his breath, barely audible, teeth clenched in a grin meant for damage control. My hand stayed clenched around the stem of the glass. The liquid inside shimmered with fury. Behind him, his mother, Vivian, looked at me with wide eyes. She had no idea, no clue what I had endured in silence, but that was about to change. Because this wasn't the first time. It was just the first time there were witnesses. And in that moment, my face throbbing, the room still frozen, I made a decision I didn't even know I was ready for. I turned toward his mother, looked her dead in the eye, and I started to speak. I told her everything. Every bruise she never saw. Every scream behind closed doors. Every time her son called me worthless, stupid, broken. Every lie I covered for him. Every fear I swallowed. I laid it all bare, right there, in front of God, champagne, and crystal chandeliers. Ethan's face drained of color. Vivian's hands dropped to her sides. Gasps echoed around the room. But I wasn't done. Because after years of hiding, of protecting the monster who wore my husband's face, I had finally reached the edge. And I wasn't falling. I was rising, with the truth in my throat and fire in my chest. He hit me. So I hit back, with words he couldn't control, in a room he thought he owned. I met Ethan at a holiday fundraiser, the kind where everyone's pretending to save the world while sipping champagne. He was magnetic, sharp suit, perfect smile, the kind of man who made you feel like the only woman in the room. I didn't stand a chance. He walked right up to me like we were already mid-conversation. "Do you always look this bored at galas?" he asked, handing me a glass of wine. I laughed, hooked. He knew exactly how to disarm someone, how to step into their blind spots like they were doorways. We went on our first date the next night, and the night after that. Within a week, he was leaving toothbrushes at my place. By month 2, he had a drawer. By month 4, he had keys. Everything about him felt like gravity. Strong, inevitable, unstoppable. He said he'd never met anyone like me, that I made him feel calm in a way nothing else did. I wore those words like a crown. Thought I'd won something rare. Thought I was different, better, chosen. Ethan moved fast. He liked things locked down, plans, commitments, control. When he proposed after 8 months, it felt sudden to everyone else. To me, it felt like destiny. I didn't know that sometimes obsession masquerades as romance. The wedding was beautiful, lavish. He insisted on perfection. He said we were the couple everyone would envy. And for a while, I believed it. We looked happy. We were happy. Or at least, I thought so. In the beginning, he was generous. Gifts. Vacations. He'd surprise me with flowers, book weekends away, tell me I was the best thing that ever happened to him. But beneath all the glitter, something darker pulsed. He didn't like when I went out without him. "Why would you need anyone else?" he'd say, half joking. He asked for my passwords early on. "Transparency is love," he insisted. And I gave them to him, because I didn't see the trap. Every time I questioned something, He had an answer. Every red flag was painted over with charm. I thought I was in a fairy tale, but I was inside a cage dressed like a castle. He never yelled in public, never raised his voice where others could hear. His cruelty came in whispers, behind closed doors, dressed in corrections, in concern, in only I know what's best. I stopped calling friends back. I skipped dinners. I said no to girls' trips, all in the name of being a good wife. I didn't realize I was erasing myself, one concession at a time. By the time I noticed the cracks, I was already too deep, married, dependent, alone, but not forever. The first time he raised his voice, it was over a text I didn't answer fast enough. "You always have your phone," he said, jaw tight, eyes narrowed. "What were you doing that was so important?" I laughed, tried to brush it off. I didn't realize I was laughing at a warning. He started commenting on my clothes. "You don't need to wear that much makeup." "That dress is a little desperate, don't you think?" Each time it was said with a smirk, masked as a joke. But it worked. I stopped dressing for myself. He tracked my location, said it made him feel close to me. If I turned it off, he'd accuse me of hiding something. "Why would you need privacy from me?" he'd ask. I didn't have a good answer, so I stopped asking for space. When I spent time with Claire, my best friend, he'd sulk, pout, accuse. "She doesn't respect our relationship," he'd say. "She wants you single again." Eventually, I saw Claire less and less, until I didn't see her at all. He controlled the money too, subtly. "Let's use one account. It's simpler," he said. But soon I had to ask before buying anything. Groceries, clothes, even coffee. He said it was about budgeting. I knew it was about power. He hated when I disagreed with him. "You always have to argue," he'd snap. "Why can't you just support me?" So I stopped arguing. I stopped voicing opinions. I started apologizing for things I hadn't done just to keep the peace. Then came the first shove. It wasn't violent. Not yet. Just a hand on my shoulder, pushing me back during a heated argument. I told myself it was stress, a one-time thing. But it wasn't. It was the beginning. The second time, he threw a glass. Not at me, but near me. Shards flew. I swept them up in silence. He apologized later with flowers, said he was sorry, that he was under pressure, that it wouldn't happen again. I believed him. I wanted to believe him. He isolated me completely. No visitors, no spontaneous plans. If I left the house, he needed to know where, when, why, and always, when I'd be back. I started living on a leash made of fear and obligation. My body changed. I lost weight, stopped sleeping. My laughter faded. I became a shadow version of myself, but no one saw. Because in public, Ethan was golden, charming, the perfect husband. Behind doors, he was something else entirely, and I was too scared to name it. But now I'm ready to call it what it was. Abuse. The night of the gala was supposed to be a celebration. Ethan was being honored for some community leadership award, more for his image than his impact. I wore the dress he picked, styled my hair the way he liked, and smiled like my life wasn't crumbling. Everyone adored him. Shook his hand, toasted his brilliance. He told stories, exaggerated charm, placed his hand on my back just enough to look affectionate. To them, he was the husband women dreamed of. To me, he was the man who screamed because I bought the wrong brand of orange juice. As the host announced his name, Ethan pulled me beside him, holding our glasses for a toast. I stood in the spotlight, his hand gripping mine too tight, his smile too wide. The lights were hot, the clapping deafening. and all I could think about was the bruise fading under my left sleeve. He leaned in close and whispered, "Don't ruin this." I nodded, mechanical. He raised his glass, began thanking the room, the sponsors, his mother, and finally, me. "To my wife," he said, "who keeps me grounded." People clapped. I tried to speak. "I just want to—" I started, but before I could finish my sentence, he slapped me. Open palm. Across the cheek, in front of everyone. Gasps. Silence. A ripple of stunned stillness swept the ballroom. My glass slipped from my hand and shattered at our feet. I stood frozen, cheek stinging, heart racing, not from shock, but from sudden clarity. He tried to play it off. "Sorry, she had something on her face," he chuckled. "She always interrupts me." A few nervous laughs floated up, people unsure how to react. No one moved, but I did. I turned my head, met his mother's eyes, and I began to speak. In that room full of power, privilege, and performance, I chose truth. The kind that doesn't wait for a quiet moment, the kind that slices clean and demands to be heard. Ethan's hand dropped. His smile cracked, and the story he built for years began to crumble beneath the weight of my voice. Once the words left my mouth, I couldn't stop. My voice was steady, but my body shook, every nerve alive with fury and release. I turned to Vivian and said, "This isn't the first time he's hit me. It's just the first time you were watching." The room gasped again, but this time no one laughed. No one clapped. Just silence. Thick, suffocating. Ethan stood beside me, frozen in disbelief, his face pale. His hand still stained with the echo of his slap. I looked around and said it all. That he isolated me, controlled me. That he'd broken me down until I didn't recognize myself. That the man they applauded wasn't real. That their golden boy was a monster in private. Vivian's hand covered her mouth. Her eyes welled with tears. "Is that true?" she asked, barely above a whisper. I nodded, slowly, deliberately. Every word. Ethan reached for me. "This isn't how you do this," he hissed. "We'll talk at home." I stepped back. "There is no home," I said. "You shattered that a long time ago." Security approached, unsure what to do. A host murmured into a mic. The event was unraveling, but I stood tall, rooted in my truth. I didn't care about their discomfort. I had swallowed mine for years. I left the ballroom in a storm of whispers and wide eyes not looking back. Claire was waiting in the lobby. She had come for moral support, just in case. I collapsed into her arms, sobbing. Not from weakness, but from release. That night, I didn't go back to our house. I went to Claire's. She poured wine, ran a bath, and held my hand while I cried for every version of myself I had buried for Ethan's comfort. The next morning, I called a lawyer, then the bank, then the locksmith. I began the process of undoing every thread that tied me to him, every account, every lease, every photo on the wall. I reclaimed my name, my space, my breath. He tried calling, messaging, threatening, begging. I ignored them all. He had used my silence to control me. Now I would use my silence to free myself, because the slap wasn't the beginning. It was the end, and I would never let him touch me, physically, emotionally, or legally, again. In the days that followed, I became my own detective, of my life, my patterns, my silence. I looked back through journal entries, texts, emails. I was searching for something. Validation. Proof that I hadn't imagined it all. That I had, in Fact, survived something real. Claire sat beside me, helping me sort through the digital wreckage. "You wrote this 2 years ago," she said, pointing at a note I'd buried in my phone. It read, "He didn't yell this time, but the way he looked at me scared me more." I didn't even remember writing it. I printed everything. Every financial transfer. Every message where he told me I was lucky someone like him would stay. Every apology that came with a bruised rib or a broken vase. I stacked them in a folder labeled Truth. It felt like armor. I reached out to a therapist. She said, "You were in a cycle of coercive control." Hearing those words made me cry harder than I expected. Because naming it meant I wasn't crazy. I wasn't dramatic. I wasn't weak. I was conditioned. I contacted a domestic violence advocate. She helped me file for a protective order. She told me I wasn't alone, that most women don't realize it's abuse until it explodes in public, until the mask slips and someone else finally sees what they've been hiding. Vivian called. I let it go to voicemail. Her message was soft, broken. "I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I should have seen it. I didn't call back. Not yet. Forgiveness would come, but not before healing. I changed my number. Opened a new bank account. Bought a new lock for Claire's front door. Everything felt like shedding skin. Every change was a new breath, a new piece of me returning. I found a photo of us from the early years. Me smiling, him with his hand on my back. I stared at it for a long time. Then I ripped it in half. Not in rage, but in finality. That woman was gone, and she wasn't coming back. I started documenting the abuse in my own voice. Audio recordings, letters to myself. I was rebuilding my narrative, brick by brick, because Ethan had stolen my story. And I was taking it back. One night, I looked in the mirror and whispered, "You were never weak. You were surviving." And for the first time in years, I believed it. The media caught wind of the slap. Someone at the gala had recorded it. Of course they had. It spread quickly, especially since Ethan had built his image on control, philanthropy, and performative charm. Now the mask had cracked in high definition. He tried to spin it. Released a statement. Claimed we had a private marital misunderstanding and that emotions ran high during a stressful moment. But no amount of PR could erase the sound of skin on skin or the stillness that followed. Didn't release a statement. I released the truth. I posted a video. Just me, sitting on Claire's couch, calm. No makeup. No tears. Just facts. My husband hit me in public, but that was just the first time you saw it. I lived it long before that night. Then I laid it all out. Emotional abuse, financial control, physical violence, the cycle, the fear, the silence, the reality. Within hours, the video went viral. Thousands of comments poured in. Some angry, some supportive, many from women who had lived the same hell. I read every word. Not because I needed validation, but because I needed to know I wasn't alone. And I wasn't. Sponsors dropped him. Boards removed him. His face vanished from campaigns that once called him a community hero. The empire he built on my silence collapsed beneath the weight of my voice. He tried calling again. Left voicemails full of rage, then regret. "You ruined everything," he said in one. "I saved you," he said in another. I didn't reply. I didn't block him either. I wanted him to see that his power was gone. Vivian showed up at Claire's door, flowers in hand, eyes red. "I believed him," she said. "I believed the version he showed me. I'm sorry." I let her inside. We cried, we talked, and for the first time, I saw the pain on her face match the pain I'd lived. I filed for divorce the next day. It wasn't vengeance. It was freedom, signed and sealed. And when the papers were served, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt whole. Because justice isn't about winning. It's about walking away with your dignity intact and your truth unshakable. I moved into a small apartment with big windows and quiet mornings. The walls were bare at first, but they felt honest. No fake portraits, no curated perfection. Just space, air, light. I could breathe again without flinching. At first, I didn't know what to do with the silence. It felt foreign, almost threatening. But slowly, it became comforting. No footsteps behind me. No accusations. No one questioning my every move. Just the sound of coffee brewing, of my own heartbeat finally steady. I went back to therapy. Not to fix myself, but to understand what I'd survived. To forgive the version of me that stayed. To honor the one who finally left. Healing wasn't linear. It was jagged, slow, and sacred. Claire helped me set boundaries. She reminded me to rest, to eat, to stop apologizing for existing. We'd take long walks, sit in parks, laugh at nothing. Every laugh felt like a reclamation. Like I was pulling pieces of myself back from the wreckage. I started writing again. Not about Ethan, but about resilience. About women who survive, who rise, who roar in silence until their voices shake the walls. My pain turned into pages. My rage turned into clarity. Vivian kept in touch. Not often, just enough. She sent a letter once, saying, "Thank you for showing me the truth. I see him clearly now. I see you clearly too." I cried when I read it, because sometimes justice comes in quiet admissions. One day, I passed by a mirror and stopped. I looked at my reflection, not to check my makeup, not to hide a bruise, but to see myself. And what I saw wasn't broken. It was rebuilt, stronger, smarter, unapologetic. I stopped wearing rings altogether, not out of bitterness, but because I didn't need a symbol to know my worth. I was no longer waiting for someone to choose me. I had chosen myself. The video faded from headlines. His name became a cautionary tale. Mine became a quiet triumph whispered between women who understood. I didn't need to stay famous. I just needed to stay free. And now, when I think of that slap, that moment when the mask fell, I don't flinch. Because it wasn't the beginning of my end. It was the end of his story in mine. And the beginning of mine. Fully written, fully lived, fully mine.